WDET is supported by the College of Business Administration at University of Detroit Mercy. UDM's Master of Business Administration is designed to accommodate the career needs of professionals across a variety of work organizations. More information at business.udmercy.edu.
It's the Metro on 1019 WDET. I'm Nick Austin.
And I'm Tia Graham. Today on the program, Detroit Dye House is opening a second location in the heart of the Avenue of Fashion. We'll chat with the owners and we'll learn more about a long-time queer cabaret that celebrates 51 years of drag, ballroom, and safe spaces.
But first, on the Metro, the Regional Transit Authority is tasked with weaving a lot of different local public transit agencies together. In their relatively short history, they've had their successes and setbacks. But a few years ago, the RTA made headlines for failing to get approval from voters to build out a comprehensive public transit system in Southeast Michigan. But that doesn't mean the organization has gone away. In fact, more recently, they've started an express route from Detroit to the Metro Airport and are taking over operations for the Q Line. Last week on Mackinac, I spoke with RTA CEO Ben Stupka about what his organization is doing to connect Southeast Michigan.
Our role is a connector. I mean, that is our job, and that can span from working with our existing transit providers, so SMART and DDOT in the ride, and finding opportunities for them to partner or for us to partner with them. It could be launching pilots and making new connections, like our airport express bus or our D2A2 bus, and it could be looking to launch our own pilots and really just trying to kind of address the needs and priorities of the region, just one project at a time. Yeah.
One thing that is really exciting, you mentioned specifically that route from the airport to Detroit. Can you tell us a little bit about what that looks like and how it's been operating ever since it's gotten its start?
So we call it the DAX route, the Detroit Air Express, dax-bus.com for folks who want to know more about the schedule and the fares. It picks up at Washington Boulevard, just across from the Book Cadillac by the Rosa Parks Transit Center. It drops off at both the McNamara and Evans terminals. We're operating it for about 2 months, almost this week. So we had it up and running before the draft. We served thousands of people over the period of the draft. About a little over 100 people a day, so a nice solid start. I mean, still got room on the buses, but trying to do different types of marketing to get people aware of it. But it's been really, really popular so far. We were able to get it up and running through a grant from SEMCOG, which is one of our regional planning partners, and some match money from the state. So just happy to have it out there. Yeah, people can find out. I can give you the schedules, but just go to dax-bus.com and you'll find out more.
And we can do that. But, all of this stuff, it takes money. And one of the things that we're talking about right now is investment in public transit to make this happen. What have been some of the recent investments made in public transit in the state?
So a couple of recent things. So Oakland County in 2022 went what we call all in for the county. So previously Oakland had only a portion of their communities opted into paying a millage for transit. So in 2022 they opted in, and what has resulted from that now in 2024 is we have bus services in Rochester. We have bus services, SMART services. I want to give them credit that they've deployed services in Rochester, Novi, another route coming out in Waterford. So those routes are getting funded. The smaller providers that serve some of the more suburban communities, Northern Oakland, Western Oakland, those have some funding. Some other services in Rochester. So that's been a great.
Yeah, but what I'm not hearing here is anything related to Wayne County in terms of this recent investment, Macomb. The things that we think of when we think of connecting transit is that we just don't have the connections we want. From your aspect, why do you think we're not quite as interconnected with transit here in the region?
So I think we are growing connections. So there are. So I don't want to just say it's all negative and bad, right? And we are working on some projects to make it better. I'd say that the funding is always the biggest issue, right? So to be able to make those transformative investments, we don't necessarily have the tools that other states and regions have, and that's why we're very appreciative and relying on grant money and other partnerships to kind of move these projects forward. So that's always going to be the first thing. The next thing is just being able to find those points of interconnectivity, so paying fares, getting customer information, and we are working on some of those projects. I'd say the other thing that we kind of forget is the size of the region. It is a geographically very large region that was developed around the automobile. So it's very sprawling and very large. So you have to use a lot of different mobility services to cover the region. So some of it is actually just how the region is set up.
Right.
Yeah.
So for you then with the RTA, what are the next steps? What are you most looking forward to in the near future that you can tell people to be on the lookout for?
Sure. So certainly D2A2 and DAX are going to continue to operate, and we're looking at those. We are in the process of taking over the operations of the Q line. So that's another big piece of business that we're doing. So that'll be a kind of big business item for this year. We are going to be entering into some planning conversations about services for seniors and people with disabilities. We have some money to invest in that next year. So we're looking at that, the Mobility Wallet project. And then, we're going to keep hammering away and talking about bus rapid transit and corridors and anything we can do to apply for grants and try and get some of those projects up and running, and so people can really feel like what does it look like on the roads to have a transit priority corridor and a bus rapid transit.
That was Regional Transit Authority CEO Ben Stupka speaking with me on Mackinac Island last week.
Metro on 101.9 WDET FM. Thinking of transit, thinking of getting around the city of Detroit, and Michigan Central Stations it's opening up today. Grand opening, finally. We're going to see it open up to the public with a giant concert. So really looking forward to the concert, really looking forward to it opening up, but really looking forward to what it's going to bring to the city of Detroit in terms of mobility. I want to see some real autonomous things happening out there. Everyone keeps talking about it, so let's see this in action. I want to see it in action.
Well, there are interesting things happening in the space. They have the road that's right next to it that has the charging of vehicles, special-made vehicles, of course, just by driving on the road. That's experimental. Already seeing some things happening with this kind of incubation in the mobility space. But what a lot of people also want to see is just Michigan Central Station reopened, seeing what it looks like, getting a chance to see that historic building that, we haven't been inside in several years. So I got a chance to see it. It was pretty phenomenal, right? So, and then, of course, we're excited about what's going to happen with the concert this evening also.
I just, like I said, really want to see the people reaction, the public, because it's been just talked about for so long. So we will continue the conversation about Michigan Central, but now we'll focus on design and renovating that building, and then a little bit later on, we're going to talk with Ford to learn more about Michigan Central Station. So you all stay right there for the Metro.
It's the Metro on 101.9 WDET. I'm Nick Austin.
And I'm Tia Graham. And if you do plan on going to Michigan Central tonight, or if you plan on being out today, there's a slight chance of rain. Other than that, lots of sunshine this afternoon into the evening with a high of 81 degrees. Friday or tomorrow, partly cloudy. It's going to be cool, with about a high of 70 degrees. And Saturday, we'll see partly cloudy skies, a 50% chance of rain with a high of 75. Both Saturday and Sunday, we'll see sunshine and 75 degrees. So definitely looking forward to a nice, breezy weekend. And Michigan Central. That's what I'm really looking forward to once again. Michigan Central Station, the reopening. And Nick, you said you already been there. What were some of the things that you already liked about it?
I love how they have done a very good job of keeping the history of the location. When it was originally built all the way back in 1913, it was an architectural model, actually, right? Using same architects that did the Central Station in New York and things like that. But you see the history in there. In fact, there are even places, for example, example, some of the graffiti, because it was obviously used as a space where people were throwing their own parties and things for a while after it had been defunct there for a bit after 1988. They still left that history in there also in some spots. So you can really see this merging of that old history in this new modern form. Get a chance to check it out. It looks really nice.
Yes, it is really nice and is hosting its grand opening today. And right now, we want to discuss the building itself. Nick got into it a little bit about some of the things that have been left there. Michigan Central has stood for over a century, and that means renovating the 30-acre property was costly, totaling about $940 million. Over the last 6 years, over 3,000 workers invested about 1.7 million hours in construction efforts. But what were the goals for this renovation project? And what kind of story is the new design meant to tell? To discuss this, we have Richard Hess here. He is a principal architect at Quinn Evans and project manager for the Michigan Central Station's restoration. Richard, welcome to the Metro.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Morning. So why did you all decide to renovate Michigan Central out of all spaces, especially in the city of Detroit?
Well, why not, right? I mean, of all buildings, and I really appreciated the introduction there, but, you know, when Michigan Central Station was originally designed, it was designed as the tallest railroad station in the world and the fourth tallest building in Detroit, you know, and ever since then, it has been a symbol of civic pride for the city of Detroit and for the residents. And you still see it today, right? Everybody still has stories they want to tell about their memories of Michigan Central Station. And so of all the buildings, and we have a lot of great buildings in the city, you know, remarkable historic preservation work in the city. But of all the buildings, Michigan Central is the one that everyone continues to turn to as a reflection of so many great things, but also our struggles over the years as a city over the last 100 years, right? It's been a symbol of who we are, and that civic pride is always there. And so, you know, anyone you talk to, everybody has been, is this ever going to happen? And it's been such a privilege to be a part of that and work on that for the last 6 years to bring it back to the city of Detroit.
Which is amazing. And you talked about the importance that it has to Detroiters, Metro Detroiters, those who visited it, who've had experiences there. Talk about that importance there. Get into the importance of what it means to Detroiters and how serious you all took that because of Detroiters' love and pride for Michigan Central.
Well, you know, it's a great question, and certainly going into the design approach for the restoration work, right? Michigan Central was placed on the National Register of Historic Places back in 1975. It is recognized nationally as a historic building, and this is something where, as we approached it, it was really about how do you find the balance, right? Preserve the cultural rich history, the character-defining features that everyone's appreciated and loved for 100 years, and how do you set the stage for the next 100 years and the next generation of users? And finding that balance is really been, you know, sort of the driving force. And when you walk into the building now, it's great hearing the commentary in the introduction there of what it's like to walk in there. You know, you're taken aback with sort of the awe of the grand hall and the concourse and the ticket lobby and all these wonderful spaces. What most people will not see or recognize during these first tours and visits and stuff, is all the infrastructure, all the technology and innovation that's behind those walls, behind those features that has gone into returning Michigan Central Station for the future, right? And introducing technology that wasn't there 100 years ago. And so finding that balance and the ways to do that and both give a nod to the last 100 years while also looking forward has been really important.
Yeah, I love that, the idea of balance and tech coming together in a way that it's been functional for the usage of whatever's going to be happening there at that mobility. I mean, there's so many different things that are happening inside of Michigan Central, and to see it resurrected in the way that it has been shouldn't be something that the public should be really proud of. And I know you all are really proud of working on it for the last 6 years. So if you can, talk about the original framework. Were you able to preserve? How much of it were you able to preserve?
Well, to be frank, a lot of the interior finishes had deteriorated over the years. And Quinn Evans actually had the privilege of being involved as sort of the architectural stewards back to 2011. So we've actually seen it over time deteriorate between 2011 and the time that Ford Motor Company stepped in 2018. And there was a lot of water damage within the building. There was, you could go into certain floors and see snow from one end of the floor to the other, and rain was just coming down on some of these roofs. So it was really at that point where we want to preserve it. We want to bring it back. We've got to do it now. So in the interior, there wasn't a tremendous amount of historic materials left, but certainly in the Grand Hall, it's the original marble flooring. If you're in the ticket lobby, there's these Mankato, very sort of majestic Mankato stone columns. And you can see a lot of the patina and the pitting of those columns that we left intact. So you can see that aging in there. A lot of the plaster work had to be redone, but it's been done in a really sort of craftsman approach to replicate what was there originally. Certainly using some new tools and new technologies and craftsmanship to do that. But our intent there was really to replicate and replace a lot of the materials that had fallen apart and deteriorated over time. Now, the skin of the exterior of the building, the limestone, a lot of that existing masonry is still there today. There was certainly over 600 tons of limestone work that was actually done on the station's renovation, but a lot of that's still intact, as well as the terracotta work that's really sort of detailed decorative cornice around the top of the tower. A lot of that is still there as well.
As well, you left some of the graffiti that was up on Michigan Central. Why did you all decide to keep that there intact as well?
Well, that was actually a long conversation with lots of debates and lots of opinions, as you can imagine, through the design process of how much do we keep, how much do we restore, and do we get rid of all of it? And
that graffiti wasn't there back in the 1910s.
No. Yeah, but it's a great point, because in 1910 it was a certain character of those spaces, right, that we've tried to return to. But there's a history there of the last 36 years that also deserves to be told too, like to reflect on that and to understand for the generations beyond us, right? Mm-hmm. that of what happened to the train station and what we saw with a lot of historic buildings in Detroit that we've had to, repurpose and restore for new uses and new generations, so keeping part of that story intact of, hey, this is a reflection of those 36 years when the building was abandoned was just as much as important to the design team and to Ford Motor Company moving forward.
And right now we're speaking with Richard Hess, a principal architect at Quinn Evans and a project manager for the Michigan Central Station's restoration project. And just thinking about everything that you all have been able to accomplish within the last 6 years, and everything that you're talking about right now, including the graffiti with the new design moving forward, what kinds of messages or narratives are you all trying to tell with this renovation project?
Great question. I think for Quinn Evans and I think for Ford Motor Company, the narrative really was sort of a reflection of the civic pride of the citizens, of the residents of the city of Detroit. There's not sort of there is a resiliency, just, sort of pitched to our design approach too, right? Buildings are not static in time. They're actually meant to evolve, and the way that we use buildings change over time. The way that Michigan Central was used 100 years ago is going to be different than it is used today, which is going to be different than it's going to be used 50 years from now. So that sense of resiliency combined with the civic pride of sort of, how do we preserve the train station for the next, 50 years for new users and new tenants to come into the building. That really was sort of the driving force of the design.
And before I let you go, what is something that you're looking forward to now that it's reopened to the public? What's some of the things that you really hope to see happening there at Michigan Central?
Well, it's great because earlier in the conversation, there was a comment about what it's like to stand in the station. And I can tell you, after we did an appreciation day for all the designers, architects, and contractors who worked on the building, and there were over 800 people inside the building that day when Bill Ford said thank you. Just seeing that space with people in it again, and just hearing the sounds and just the conversations, it was just remarkable, right? To see the building function and be used again. And to me, that's going to be the joy tonight moving forward, to see the public actually be able to enjoy these spaces again.
I feel the same way, Richard. Richard Hess is a principal architect at Quinn Evans and the project manager for Michigan Central Station's restoration. Thank you so much for joining us on the Metro.
Thank you for having me.
It's the Metro on 1019 WDET. That's Tia Graham, and I'm Nick Austin. And coming up, we will continue our conversations here with you, checking in about what's going on this weekend at one of Detroit's oldest gay bars as they celebrate Pride Month. It's the Metro on 1019 WDET. I'm Nick Austin.
And I'm Tia Graham. On the border of Detroit on West Warren, Gigi's Gay Bar resides as one of the longest running showrooms in Michigan. They celebrated their 51st anniversary in March. Nikki Stevens has been the show director for over 30 years and is the face of the cabaret show. Stevens began a career as a dresser for drag queens and decided she wanted to become an entertainer as well. She's here to discuss how the LGBTQ community has evolved and what they're going to be celebrating this Pride weekend in Detroit. Nikki, thank you so much for joining us on the Metro.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
And this is my first interview downtown.
Yeah, nice. Welcome to the Metro.
Thank you.
So, how long has Gigi's Cabaret been around?
The cabaret itself has been around for about 45 years, but the bar itself is 51 years.
Wow.
They used to do shows in the upper level. We have two levels. Mm-hmm. So the lower level is the cabaret room, which is the showroom. And before that, they did shows upstairs, and it was a separate area bar downstairs. But
yeah. And when did you decide that you wanted to become a performer at Gigi's?
Oh, here we go. Well, back in the day, when HBO first started and I was young, I saw a special with Charles Pierce, who was a famous female impersonator, famous for being a Betty Davis impersonator. And I saw that and I said, well, I think I found my calling in the back of my head. Being gay back in the 1970s and 80s wasn't, a little different than it is now.
Yeah.
And then I started dressing female impersonators at a bar on 6 Mile and started hanging out there. And then I decided, well, I might as well do this. And everybody said, oh, don't get into this business. It's a hard business. You don't want to do this business, da-da-da-da. I didn't believe them. Well, now I know what the hell they're talking about.
So when we think about the business and we think about the spaces, how have you seen not only just Gigi's change over time and evolve, but how have you seen queer spaces evolve over the years in Detroit and Metro Detroit?
Well, back in the day, and when I came out and started going to the bars, there was 70 bars.
70
to choose from. You could go to 2 bars a night and still not hit all of them in a month. Now we're down to, with the suburbs, 8. A lot of that has to do with the internet, of course, that you can sit on your couch and swipe.
Yeah.
And that the being out is a little bit more acceptable than it was back in the day. And, now they're holding hands and kissing on the streets of Royal Oak and Ferndale. That, back in the 80s when I came out, you'd get shot.
Yeah.
That and the non-smoking thing had a big thing to do with that.
Yeah.
But, and recession in 2008.
Yeah.
And so we're still surviving. We're still going.
I was going to say, how is Gigi's continuing on 51 years later, continuing, especially through the pandemic, especially throughout, how did you all continue to go on?
Well, the old ownership, one by one, it was 8 of them slowly passed away. So they were getting ready to give it up. and now our new owners, Louis and Josh, stepped in January, 1 month before the shutdown of COVID.
Wow.
Right. So they're thinking, all right, let's go full force. And no. So everything shut down. We were carrying chairs out to the parking lot and social distancing and trying to keep the bar going and trying to keep it open.
Yeah.
Remodeling at the same time, me on my hands and knees, cleaning and painting floors and trim. But we got through it, and it's surviving, and we're not going anywhere.
Yeah, and just thinking about not going anywhere and being in that particular that community for 51 years, it has changed.
Oh, yeah.
The neighborhood has changed. The demographic has changed. Everything has changed in that area. I grew up not too far from it, and I've seen it change since I lived in that area. So what have you seen change demographically, and what have you seen around Gigi's? Like, just
the neighborhood's getting better with the destruction of Herman Gardens, which was at Joy and Southfield, and now it's all brand new condos and houses and everything else. And so the neighborhood's coming back, but it was such a decline for so many years in the late 90s and early 2000s. And now there's a big push to make the Warren corridor so much better. We've gotten grants. We just remodeled the outside of the building. The other businesses along Warren are remodeling. They just did a new streetscape with all new bike lanes and parking and planting and bus stops and murals on all the sides of the buildings. So, you know, clap and hands up to the mayor and for what they're doing in the city council, because they're really trying to turn that West Warren corridor around.
They really are. And like I said, I grew up in the area, I'm often in the area, and you see it changing just based on the way it looked. And that look, the change of the facade in the area alone is bringing, you can feel the uplifting of the community there. So I'm just thinking about all the things that you all are going to be able to accomplish now that you see those changes starting to manifest around you. What do you see going forward with Gigi's due to these positive changes happening around you?
Well, we just, like I said, remodeled the outside of the building and remodeling the inside, of course, both levels. What we're really striving for now and looking into is there has never been a LGBTQ establishment on the Michigan Historic. So we're trying to get Gigi's listed as an historic site for gay people and everything else. So that means it would always have to be a bar. It would always have to be a gay club or something having to do with the LGBTQ community.
Yes. Nikki Stevens is a cabaret show director and performer who came in today to chat about Gigi's Gay Bar. Been there for 51 years on West Warren, not too far from Southfield Freeway. So just talk about any special events that you all having due to Motor City Pride, but just due to Pride Month itself. Anything special programming, anything people should know?
Well, we have our kickoff party, Detroit's only Pride party, coming up this Friday night. Doors open at 7 o'clock, and we have a swag bag and T-shirt giveaway. Wives supplies last. 2 shows, one at 11 and one at 12:30, along with the fabulous Sabin and Miss Latifah Hunter. I'll be there after I get done with a Pride event at the Old Redford Theater. So opening up the movie Priscilla, Queen of the Desert. I mean, they couldn't find a more recent drag movie, but let's go. But I'll be there anyway.
Take your director hat out,
right,
and create it.
Like, they are making part 2, by the way. And then Saturday nights, I have 2 out-of-town entertainers, one from Las Vegas, Nevada, the one and only, and legendary Coco Vega will be there, and the current reigning Miss Addicted to Glamour from Ohio, Miss Valerie Valentino, along with our award-winning house cast. Those showtimes are 10 and 11 p.m. Sunday night is the After Dark show with Miss D'Angela Show Shannon. And Monday night, we have brought back, after 35 years, the Mr. Gigi's contest, which is biological females portraying themselves as males, drag kings. We have 10 contestants as we know of right now. We don't know what's going to walk in at 7 o'clock on Monday night. But I'll be your hostess and MC, and the pageant Males, it's a contest. Females, it's a pageant. The contest starts at 9:30. So we brought that back.
Yeah.
So
a lot of exciting things happening this Pride weekend at Gigi's Bar, which is on Warren, right? Not too far from Southfield Freeway.
3 blocks east of the Southfield Freeway on West Warren.
All right. It's Nikki Stevens, cabaret show director and performer, came on the show today to provide a fun way to celebrate Pride this upcoming weekend and provided us with some history about Gigi's Gay Bar. Thank you so much, Nikki, for being here.
Thank you for having us, and a shout out to everyone. Everyone's welcome at Gigi's except narrow-minded people. So come on down and join us and have a great time.
You heard that.
Thank you.
It's the Metro on 1019 WDET. That was Tia Graham, and I am Nick Austin. And we are getting into some of the news that's really been impacting a lot of us here, because when it comes to the Detroit Riverfront, that is one of our shining jewels. When things go down with some concern about what's happening there, it gets a lot of people interested. And right now, when news came down, the Detroit Riverfront Conservancy's chief financial officer allegedly stole $40 million, well, people were certainly shocked. $40 million is a lot of money, but how does it go missing without anyone noticing it? Federal prosecutors quickly jumped on the case, and yesterday they charged the DRC CFO William Smith with bank and wire fraud. But this does have some wondering about the Conservancy's internal dynamics, and even more than that, of those with nonprofits generally. What are the ways nonprofits are held accountable? And does this case of corruption and others say that there might be changes that we need in the world of nonprofits? To discuss this now, we have David Fahrenthold here. He is a New York Times investigative reporter writing about corruption among nonprofits. David, welcome to the Metro.
Hey, thank you.
So before we get into what you've seen generally in the world of nonprofits, for folks who might not be so familiar, can you give us a little bit of an update on what's happening here with CFO William Smith?
Well, so this was the CFO of the DRC he started in 2011. And what the allegation is that basically almost from the beginning, starting in 2012, he started stealing, and not stealing on a small scale, but stealing on a pretty huge scale. As you said, they think it totaled over $40 million in that time. What's striking, though, from what the prosecutors laid out yesterday, is just how unsupervised this person was, how much power he had. So one of the big checking accounts that the DRC had, and your listeners probably know this, but it's a big organization. It's got more than $100 million in assets. It gets tens of millions of dollars every year in grants from either the government or private foundations. That this one of its big bank accounts, he was the only one who had the password. Nobody else could see it. Nobody else knew what was going on with it. Even the accountant at the DRC, the one who worked for him, he would only give her statements on paper. He'd meet her in the parking lot of a Honey Baked Ham in Ann Arbor and hand over paper statements. And so for years, he would just spend all this money on himself or paying off his American Express bills, and then doctor the paper statements, give it to the accountant, and literally nobody was the wiser.
Yeah, I was looking at the complaint, and it was kind of astonishing when you see it there. The way they lay it out is money would go directly from the Conservancy account into whatever he was paying for. So there's really a direct touching there of things, which would lead us to wonder, how is it that this isn't seen earlier? You did mention, of course, there's the paper portion of it, but is this common that we see in other conservancies or entities like this and other philanthropy, or was this abnormal?
I mean, it is unfortunately common. What's common in nonprofits is that there is sort of an informal structure. You know, people don't get paid as much. Part of the benefit of a nonprofit is that you sort of trust each other. But, you know, there's an informal structure where just one person or maybe two people have control over the finances. And yes, there's a board, but they don't pay that much attention. Yes, there's auditors, but they only sort of take what the CFO gives them. What's different about this case is the scale of the nonprofit where this happened. I've seen this happen a lot in really small organizations where somebody can steal $40,000 from a Little League team or $40,000 from a church. But we're talking about a group that had tens of millions of dollars, and they still had this really informal setup where one guy basically had all the power. I think that's the question that has to be asked now is what was the board doing? What were the auditors doing for 12 years that they didn't notice this huge amount of money go missing?
Yeah, and when we think about the auditing that's occurring here also, right, you would say there's a yearly audit of these materials. Again, that's what we would expect would make someone see what's happening here. In terms of your reporting, what is it about an audit? Like, how is it possible? How common is it for the auditors to not be able to have the information that they need in order to conduct it right? Shouldn't the auditor be raising a flag like, hey, I don't have everything that I need to properly conduct an audit? What's the gap here?
Yeah, there's a conflict of interest here in that the auditor needs the business, right? In theory, the auditor is the police. They're the ones who are checking up on this business and making sure they're not lying or deceiving anyone. But also, the auditor needs the business, right? There's an incentive if they push too hard, maybe they'll get fired. This actually came up in another context. I was working on stories about President Trump. I covered his business for a long time. He had auditors, and then it turned out later when the New York Attorney General sued him that there'd been this massive fraud going on under the nose of the auditors, and the auditors said, "Well, look." Yeah, what we produce looks official, and it looks like we really delve deeply into the finances, but we only can work with what they give us. We can't go any deeper than they'll let us. So I think that was the case here. They relied on the organization, the auditors, to give them, financial records, and they went from there. Nobody apparently was interested in delving beneath, okay, well, what if this one guy who's the one point of failure, what if he's lying? Was there anybody who was checking up on what he did, or was there sort of an unspoken arrangement that they just trusted him?
We're speaking with David Fahrenthold, a New York Times investigative reporter writing about nonprofit organizations. And David, another reason why we're bringing this up now is because we've seen with the need to try to get some of these big projects going. Like, again, folks here are really proud of our riverfront. You would hear about how you need the connection of public and private working together to make these things work. Of course, something like this, though, would have folks have a little bit of pause. What role does public dollars play when it comes to oversight in these nonprofits? Do they have any role there, or is it normally like they just send the money and then the public sector is out of it?
Well, they do some oversight. In fact, the audit that this organization, the DRC, did was sort of a condition of getting federal money. If you get more than $750,000 a year in federal money, you have to produce an audit. But in this situation, when you give money over to a nonprofit like the DRC, from government's perspective, the benefit is, well, maybe there's less overhead. They can move faster than government does. But you're sort of putting your trust in the board of this nonprofit that they're going to be the ones checking up on it. In this case, the DRC's board is 44 people. It's all kinds of different people from different government entities and all kinds of other, people around the city. You might look at that and say that's too many. 44 people in many ways would be less effective at oversight than 5 would, because everybody's busy and there's not that much for any one of them to do, and they probably don't spend that much time on it. So I wonder if one of the things we'll look back on is saying, rather than have a board that is trying to be representative of every stakeholder, let's get a board that's small enough to actually do its job.
Yeah. So in terms of what you're seeing then out there, you've given us a little bit of the context. It sounds like this is pretty big based on what you've seen in terms of your work nationally. You can correct me on that, but what I'd also like to know from you is, are there any moves, pushes to look at what we can do to make sure there is better oversight? I mean, this was caught, but it was caught $40 million later. What can we do to tighten this up for our nonprofits?
Well, you're right that it was very large. I mean, if you look at the amount of money the DRC said it spent every year, from 2012 to 2024, the term of this theft, he stole about 40% of the budget. Like that 40% of the money that was going out every year, that's big. I mean, it's big in dollar figures, but also big proportionally. I think there's 2 things you can do to sort of try to catch this in the future. The one is, as I said, to have smaller and more active boards, to have a board that's not just sort of a ceremonial post, but actually a real oversight role. The other one is, there are oversight. There is regulators for nonprofit. In Michigan, it's the Attorney General. For everybody, it's the Internal Revenue Service. But one thing we've seen is that those auditors have really been cut back, especially the IRS. The IRS audits less than 1% of all nonprofits around the country. So, there's so much sort of trust and sort of like a self-policing built into this business And I think we're seeing the consequences of that now. It's very easy to get away with fraud in the nonprofit sector because if your board's not looking, there's very little chance anybody else is going to look.
We're going to have to keep looking at this ourselves, but David Fahrenthold, New York Times investigative reporter writing about nonprofit organizations, thank you so much for joining us on the Metro.
Thanks for having me.
Metro on 1019 WDET FM. That was Nick Austin. I'm Tia Graham. FDA advisors say it's time to update the recipe for COVID-19 vaccines coming out this fall. Moderna, Pfizer, and Novavax say they're preparing to have shots ready by this fall. As well, eBay says it will no longer accept American Express payments because its fees are too high. Owners of the online marketplace say customers have other payment options, so they don't have to worry about American Express.
Yeah, well, okay. Well, they don't have to worry about me either.
No.
If you're trying to roll those costs onto me, maybe the model of your business doesn't work so well.
Doesn't work.
I don't know, but
who am I to say? Just know that if you use eBay, they will not be accepting your American Express card.
I haven't used eBay in over 10 years.
I would say the same thing. And honestly, my mom said, "Is it still around?" And I said, "Yeah, yes."
Yeah.
This is not Amazon, unfortunately. But coming up on the Metro, we'll talk about something that's not online. We'll discuss the opening of Detroit Dye House on Livernois. You all stay right there.
It's the Metro on 1019 WDET. I'm Nick Austin.
And I'm Tia Graham. Detroit Dye House is opening its second location in Detroit along Detroit's Avenue of Fashion. The Livernois shop just south of 7 Mile will offer the same services as the Livonia location, tie-dye sessions, and more. This Sunday, Detroit Dye House is holding an open house from 12 to 4 to introduce themselves to the community and give away a few things, some free swag. Joining us now to talk a little bit more about the new location is Alex Chevrolet and Tammy Bork. They are both the owners of Detroit Dye House. Welcome to the Metro.
Hi, thank you.
Yes.
Thanks.
So Tammy, we're going to start with you. You are the original owner. You are mom of Detroit Dye House.
Yeah.
Why did you all decide to expand now?
We were a fashion brand and we were a wholesaler and we wanted to be in Detroit and we felt like a store retail by itself maybe would be a tough sell. And we love doing it. It's changed my life, making art. And so opening the store gave us a chance to bring people to us. And when they're there, they shop because our stuff is beautiful.
Yes. I mean, I rock the socks that you all gave me all the time up to my leg. You can see me all the time wearing the socks. So when I think about your expansion and I think about just knowing a little bit about you, Alex told us a little bit about you at the last time we had a Detroit Dye House on and talked a little bit about your background teaching, just being in that type of space. How does it feel expanding into a community that is ready to have a teaching type of shop?
It's so exciting because I thought my teaching was over. I was a Montessori teacher. My husband is too. So when we started doing the Dye House, it's really formulated after those types of attributes like independence. Adults want independence too. Yeah. So it's a lot of hands-on. You get to find out the wonders of color just by doing it. Mm-hmm. A lot of less verbal instruction, but you're just doing hands-on. And it's very enriching, and people love it, which is super satisfying to me. Yeah, I feel really like, oh, good. They love it as much as I do.
That's why I find it so special that it's opening up your second location, because it's a testament that people do want to use their hands and be in a communal space, doing something like you said, even independently that you can take with you later on. So, Alex, now that I have you here with your mom, both you and Tammy, just talk a little bit about what it's been like working with your mom, especially starting this second location and what it's been like.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think within every small family business, there's a lot of complicated dynamics at play. You go from being mom and daughter questions, and then in the middle of it, you start talking about work, and then you have to flip back to being mom and daughter. So it gets tricky to work on that balance. I find that honestly through the classes, I've gotten to see like a different side of my mom and my dad, and our employees as well, in watching them work with the public. So by taking this leap and opening a second location, it was really not only for the community, but it was a lot for us as a team to be able to continue our expression and continue what we believe is something really beautiful and powerful in the city.
And this is a little off the topic type of question, but talk about that realization, or that what's happening when you're working with your parents and you're watching them age as they're watching you age, and that dynamic there. And what has it been like seeing that? Like you talked about a little bit, seeing your parents. Well, what is that like?
It's strange for sure. You watch two people who have been building something. I've been watching it since I was about 14 years old, and then building this from an art fair business all the way to having our own brick and mortar. And it's incredible, but you watch the toll that it takes on them, the effort that it takes to be an entrepreneur. But what I've witnessed is it goes from a livelihood to a lifestyle. And my parents have shown myself and my siblings, none of us work 9 to 5s, any of my siblings. I'm the only one that's like really a fully part of the dye house, but none of us have normal like 9 to 5 jobs or work for other people. We are a very small business entrepreneurial family, and that's because we got to witness what a lifestyle looks like. And that looks like making your own hours, feeling satisfied at the end of the day. And, you know, your money comes and goes really differently than it does when you have a steady paycheck. Yeah. But you have a lot more experiences and you get to involve a lot more. I've gotten to involve friends in my business because they needed a side job and I needed help. Yeah. And same with my parents. I've gotten to watch them allow me into the business and get to take it from something they've built and worked really hard on, and I see the value in it, and I get to do that now and kind of try to further it so then they can also stop working and rest.
Yes, exactly. So, Tammy, you're going to the Avenue of Fashion. You all have chosen to be in Detroit, in the heart of the Detroit booming fashion industry, fashion area in general. And here you all coming with this colorful, lively fashion brand that you're bringing here. So, Tammy, just talk about opening up, number one, but then the open house that you all plan on having this weekend.
Sure. So it's the first building. It's our first investment. First thing Detroit, brightly twisted is our kind of LLC. It's the first thing we bought and committed to. So we're in the city. It was a big leap for us. We did it during the pandemic.
Yes.
So we're finally opening, and we're super committed. And so this Sunday is an opportunity to just bring the community to us. Everything's free.
Yeah.
If you want to leave and buy discounted classes for the future, I'd recommend it, because we do this buy now, book later. You scoop them up at a really inexpensive price and use them anytime.
Yeah.
And so that's a great time for us too, because then we know you're coming.
Exactly.
You know, so we'll be open Thursdays through Sunday. We're not sure we can do a steady schedule yet, but we're going to give it a shot for the summer. Mm-hmm. You know, we can use I don't know about at Livernois, you can use the front of your space so you can be outside.
Yeah, there's a lot of walking area, which is great. And then we'll have
outdoor space this weekend,
nice.
You know, where you can just stop in, you can dye something.
Yes.
So we'll be shopping. We've got some clothes that'll be discounted. But also my dad has made these beautiful murals in the space. So the outside of the space is completely, it looks like dye is like dripping down off of it. So you can definitely tell it's our store.
Yeah.
But then when you walk in, you are kind of hit in the face with these beautiful murals of different artists. So it's kind of just a cool thing. It's also like if you want to come and get to see some art, it's another place to get to do that as well.
Just a nice chill spot, a nice chill vibe place. I love that so much. But so before I let you both go, of course, just give us the rundown about the second location and then what everyone should know about just the future of Detroit Dye House, but just the future of the brand, the company, and the family.
Yeah. So this Sunday, it's from 12 to 4 p.m. You can come in. You can. We have things for you to dye. You can experience what it's like, see the space. Let us know what you'd like. Yeah. We're kind of interested to hear what the neighborhood has in their mind, too, of what they're expecting from us. And we'd like to hear it so we can implement those things. And then for us as a brand, I think our goal is to really just keep promoting art. We find it to be healing. We find it to be
inspiring.
It brings the community together, and it really also lets people let go. And I think we could all use that in our day-to-day life. It's heavy. We live in a heavy world. And so our goal is to give you an hour of lightness, basically.
And color's magic.
Yeah.
It's universal.
Yeah.
It is a universal language. So when you get in the dye house and everyone has got color coming at them, it's magic there. You just have to come visit too.
Yeah.
Please join us.
Yeah.
I just wanted to leave it there with the magic. I do. Just want to leave it with magic.
Awesome.
Alex Chevrolet and Tammy Bork are the owners of Detroit Dye House. Detroit Dye House is opening its second location Sunday, June 9th on Livernois Avenue in the heart of Detroit's Avenue of Fashion. And that open house is from 12 to 4 p.m. Thank you both so much for being here once again, sharing
Thank
us
you, guys.
all the love of Detroit Dye House.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
And that's going to do it for the Metro for Thursday, June 6th. You can listen to recent episodes online at WDET.org and make sure to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform.
The show is produced by Sam Corey, David Lyons, and Jack Philbrandt. Our engineer is Nate Bender. Our assistant producers are Sydney Walkley and Anel Scott.
The Metro is a production of WDET, a listener-supported service of Wayne State University. If you like what you hear and want to support the Metro, consider becoming a member at WDET.org/donate.
This is WDET FM, Detroit Public Radio, your connection to news, music, and conversation. Have a great day.
WDET is supported by the College of Business Administration at University of Detroit Mercy. UDM is offering a new master's degree in ethical leadership focused on sustainable, ethical, and inclusive problem solving. More information at business.udmercy.edu.